Khamzat Chimaev became UFC undisputed middleweight champion at UFC 319 when he dominated and embarrassed Dricus Du Plessis to win the middleweight title. We're now just a mere couple days later, and the UFC and Dana White are already fumbling Khamzat Chimaev's title reign by booking Renier de Ridder versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez for UFC Fight Night Vancouver on October 18th. And I think I know why they're doing this, and I'm going to break that down later in the video. But after what Khamzat Chimaev said at the UFC 319 post-fight presser, what Dana White teased at the UFC 319 post-fight presser, which we're going to take a look at in this video, it just feels like a massive missed opportunity not having Khamzat Chimaev make a quick turnaround and defend his UFC middleweight title at UFC 321 in Abu Dhabi against Renier de Ridder or Anthony Fluffy Hernandez for that matter. But it looked like all signs were pointing to RDR, which we will also break down in this video. But let's start off by watching Dana White announce Renier de Ridder versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, because he actually brings up Khamzat Chimaev in this video. Listen to this.
In the main event, it's a 5-round fight between middleweight contenders Renier de Ridder and Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. That is a badass fight. And obviously next month in Paris, we have another top middleweight contender fight between number 2 ranked Imavov and 7th ranked Borralho. And then Vancouver is a few weeks later. We'll see how this whole thing plays out. And we're going to end up with a middleweight challenger for Khamzat Chimaev's title that he just won.
So there you go. Dana White actually doing some promoting there, letting you know there are stakes on the line with RDR versus Fluffy, and also Nassourdine Imavov versus Caio Borralho. Dana White doing some promoting. He did look like he was being held hostage there. He did look like he was reading a script because he doesn't even remember who's fighting who anymore. I could do Dana White's job better than he could in terms of announcing the fights. But either way, he says, look, these fights have massive implications. This is going to have a middleweight contender emerge for Khamzat Chimaev. Now, I believe Dana specifically did that because he knows what a megastar Khamzat Chimaev is. And he knows dangling that Khamzat Chimaev carrot out there makes people care about these middleweight fights when maybe they wouldn't necessarily. I mean, you should if you're a fan of the sport. These are both banger middleweight matchups. But also, this shows that Dana knows what a megastar Khamzat is, which is it's fairly obvious. It's probably even more obvious for him. But he is the new face of the sport. But how often do we get Dana White dangling #1 contender fights for a champion who just won the belt a couple days prior? It's not very often that happens. But he knows that will drive engagement. He knows that will get people talking. Now, ultimately, I believe this is a huge fumble by the UFC, and we're going to break it down. We're going to look at Dana White's UFC 319 post-fight presser, as well as Khamzat Chimaev's presser as well. But I want to react to this fight card first, mainly just the main event, but we'll talk about some other fights. So we have Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, Renier de Ridder, October 18th in Vancouver. It's a fight night in Vancouver. Listen, I got to be honest. I'm going to crap on it a little bit later in the video because I do believe it's a massive fumble. It's a huge fumble, and it's a disappointing fumble. But I think I understand why, and we'll get to that. But other than that, this is a banger matchup. I absolutely love this fight. RDR is an amazing fighter to watch. I know he's kind of sloppy. I know he's like the skinny version of DDP who probably won't sit in doggy style for an entire fight. But he's on a crazy win streak. He's already fought, 3 times in 2025 right now? Yeah. He beat up Kevin Holland. He beat up Bo Nickel. I mean, he melted Bo Nickel. He made Bo Nickel look like a little bitch. And then he beat Robert Whittaker to put himself in position for a #1 contender fight against Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. But crazy win streak in the UFC. Beat some okay opposition, mainly Robert Whittaker is the staple name on his resume. And then you have Fluffy Hernandez, who's on a crazy win streak himself. Not against the best opposition. He lost in 2020 against Kevin Holland. But stylistically, this is an amazing matchup. RDR is well-rounded. He's good everywhere, but kind of sloppy in the jiu-jitsu, kind of sloppy in the striking. Went to war with Gerald Meerschaert. Fluffy Hernandez coming off an absolute beatdown of Roman Dolidze. Some people were trying to champion Hernandez as the number one contender off a beaten Roman Dolidze. RDR was the more deserving contender. There's no doubt about that. If you gave one of these guys a title shot right now, RDR would be more deserving of the contender spot against Khamzat Chimaev, which is why I wanted that quick turnaround, but we'll talk about that in a second. Other than that, banger matchup. But listen, guys, for an early prediction for this fight, I want RDR to win. I really like RDR. I think Hernandez takes this. I think Hernandez's jiu-jitsu is better. Hernandez is not going to quit. Hernandez is not going to slow down. And I know RDR doesn't really slow down, but I think Fluffy has better cardio than RDR. And RDR striking isn't all that great. It's not like, I think RDR will be the physically bigger fighter, but I think Fluffy's, we've seen him go out there and ragdoll Dolidze, who has good grappling and is very big and strong. And so this is going to be a very competitive matchup, but I think Fluffy will probably get it done here. I just think he has superior striking. I think he has superior jiu-jitsu. He's just as tough and as durable as RDR, but it would not shock me if RDR pulled this off. I don't think Anthony Hernandez is like infallible. I don't think he's a lock for this fight. And this is going to be a scrappy fight. It could take one knee to the body. Next thing you know, Fluffy's melted. I don't think that's going to happen. He's not Bo Nickel. He's not going to quit after a couple of knees to the body. But Fluffy is kind of soft in the midsection, and RDR is big for the weight class, and Fluffy's kind of pudgy for the weight class. So it's a 50-50 fight. I lean Hernandez. I think he's more skilled overall. I would probably take Hernandez via decision, but I absolutely love this matchup on paper. You have two contenders on long winning streaks. I just hate that also you're kind of killing off a contender. You could have Hernandez beat somebody up. You could have RDR beat someone up. You could have the winner of Imavov Borralho beat, or fight Khamzat Chimaev next. Whoever won that fight could fight Khamzat Chimaev next. And then you could still have a contender here. Now, ultimately, what I would have liked is them throw RDR against Khamzat Chimaev on UFC 321. But some other fights they announced in this card. So I'm going Anthony Fluffy Hernandez in this fight. Love the matchup overall. But some circumstances I absolutely hate about this fight, like killing off one of the contenders, even though I know it's got to happen at some point, and also not having someone to be able to fight Khamzat Chimaev at UFC 321 in Abu Dhabi in late October. Anyway, rest of the card real quick. Manon Fiorot versus Jasmine Jadavicius. Banger matchup. I'm going Manon Fiorot, okay? I think she has the better striking overall. Jasmine Jadavicius has gotten significantly improved over her last few fights, showing decent skill on the ground. I don't think she's getting Manon Fiorot down. I don't think her striking is better. So decent fight, decent women's MMA fight. I'm going Manon Fiorot. And then also I think they announced Marlon Vera, Ayman Zahabi as well. And Kevin Holland versus Mike Malott. Kevin Holland on another main card. Give me a break, man. Mike Malott may win this fight out grappling him. I don't know. We'll get a full card predictions when we get to it later this year in 2 months. But I'm slightly leaning Mike Malott because Kevin Holland's a scrub. And then for Marlon Vera, Ayman Zahabi, like the matchup. I'm leaning Ayman Zahabi. I'm not a big believer in Marlon Vera. I know Ayman Zahabi, it doesn't fight that aesthetically pleasing. But, he beat Aldo in his last fight. So Marlon Vera, I think he's kind of on the decline. I can't forget that second O'Malley performance where he shit the bed and didn't fight at all. I'm going Ayman Zahabi. But overall, this is a decent fight night card for Vancouver, and I absolutely love the main event. But my problem is Khamzat Chimaev absolutely dominates Dricus Du Plessis, comes out unscathed. Khamzat Chimaev became a megastar in the UFC for his activity in 2020, and there's been a lot of criticisms of Khamzat's inactivity, okay? And some of that was visa issues, some of that was UFC decision-making as well, and some of it was him being sick and pulling out against Robert Whittaker, even though people overplay the level of pullouts from Khamzat Chimaev by making up fictitious stories. We're not even going to get into that. I've already broken that down a million times. But after he dominated Dricus at UFC 319, we had him tweeting back and forth with RDR with a skull. Then we have, I'm going to make you look like a white belt, Habibi. It seemed like the fight just made perfect sense. He beat Robert Whittaker. Look at Dricus. He beat Robert Whittaker, got a title shot. Look at Khamzat. Beat Robert Whittaker, got a title shot. RDR beat Robert Whittaker. Made sense for him to get a title shot. If they weren't going to wait for the winner of Imavov versus Borralho, it made sense for this fight. And you even had RDR send me the contract, did an interview, send me the contract. And even if you weren't going to give it to RDR for whatever reason, maybe you wanted to give it to someone else, Fluffy Hernandez said in an interview right around UFC 319, right after the fight, he said he'll take it as well. Listen to him.
Tell me your thoughts on what we saw. Khamzat Chimaev is the new champion of the middleweight division.
Congratulations to him. It's a fucking pretty boring fight, I'm not going to lie.
Casual.
But, man, call me for the fight. I can wrestle, I can do jiu-jitsu, I can stop all this shit, and I can shut him down. And, like, with my gas tank, man, I'll drown him, I promise. I'll make him fucking work. So call me, keep me in mind, guys, and I think you guys will have a new fucking Mexican-American champion.
I think Khamzat would run through Fluffy, but that's besides the point. So we have two willing participants, RDR and we have Fluffy. Now we're going to put them against each other on October 18th. So that means they're not going to be able to fight on October 25th. What is so annoying about this is Dana White was asked about Khamzat Chimaev potentially fighting in Abu Dhabi on October 25th. Listen to Dana here.
He had said all fight week he wants to turn around and fight in Abu Dhabi. Is that something you would consider, or do you feel like with the heavyweight title already on that card, like he maybe...
I just had a kid fight Tuesday and wanted to turn around and come here. I would Abu Dhabi, I would definitely consider.
Yeah.
So there you go. But you're probably wondering, what did Khamzat Chimaev say? Khamzat Chimaev was asked about it in his post-fight interview as well. Listen to this.
Do you still want to turn around and fight in Abu Dhabi?
We'll see what they say. I'm ready always, so no injuries. Thanks, God.
I'm ready, no injuries. Let's see what they say. Dana White seems like he's open to the idea, and then literally a couple days later, he announced Fluffy versus RDR. This would have been massive for Khamzat Chimaev. This would have been absolutely massive. But now, unless you're going to try to get Imavov or Borralho to make a quick turnaround, it's not really possible anymore because Imavov versus Borralho is on September 6th. So don't get me wrong. If the winner of that fight, let's say Imavov goes out there and slumps Borralho, could Imavov turn around on a little under 2 months, about 6 weeks, and fight in Abu Dhabi at UFC 321? It's possible. But Dana's already saying, well, we're going to see what's going to happen in Imavov Borralho as well as De Ridder versus Hernandez. And we'll see what happens, and that'll be the next contender for Khamzat. There's no way they're waiting till October 18th to announce who's going to be the next contender to fight on October 25th at UFC 321. So that basically rules Khamzat Chimaev out of UFC 321. And it's just annoying to me because we've seen the criticisms, right? We've seen the criticisms. Khamzat Chimaev never fights, man. Khamzat Chimaev's inactive. Well, first off, he had visa issues. But then Khamzat Chimaev dominated Whitaker, buzzsawed through him at UFC, UFC 308 in October of last year, and he was ready to fight for the title, right? He said he was ready to go January, February, March, whenever the UFC was willing to give him the title shot. He was ready for that. But instead, they booked Dricus Du Plessis versus Sean Strickland 2, where Sean Strickland went out there and shit the bed and fought like a total beta male soy boy, refused to fight, and then got praised by Dana White afterwards, being an undeserving title contender and refusing to fight for being a professional and getting his nose broke. So Khamzat, instead of fighting in February, had to wait another 6 months until August to fight Dricus Du Plessis, and now he doesn't get the opportunity to fight again this year unless somebody pulls out of a big card. Or maybe they book him in December, which I don't think. November's most likely going to be Islam Makhachev JDM for the welterweight title. So unless it's December, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Unless Alex Pereira backs out against Magomed Ankalaev, maybe then Khamzat could step in against Sean Strickland. I would absolutely love Sean Strickland to get another undeserved title shot. I don't think that's going to happen. So essentially now we have to wait till January, February for Khamzat Chimaev's next title defense at the earliest, unless they make it December. I just think it's a huge fumble because Khamzat took no injuries. He already has issues in the past with the visa issues, and then they made him sit on ice while Sean Strickland got an undeserved title shot. Why not give him a quick turnaround against RDR? He's most likely going to run through RDR anyway, and now Khamzat Chimaev's name is even more elevated in terms of star power in the UFC. But instead, they book Fluffy Hernandez versus RDR. But I believe I know why. I believe I know why they did this. Khamzat Chimaev, I've told you guys for a while, Khamzat Chimaev is one of the biggest names in the UFC. And I told you guys, if he beat Dricus Du Plessis, regardless of method at UFC 319, if he beat Dricus Du Plessis, he would be the biggest name in the sport. And I'll tell you guys this right now. I believe Khamzat Chimaev is the biggest star in the UFC right now. And what did the UFC just do? The UFC just signed a $7.7 billion deal with Paramount. So maybe, just maybe, the UFC wants to save Khamzat Chimaev for that first Paramount card, which would be in January. Maybe also the UFC is trying to line up some deal with Abu Dhabi or Saudi Arabia or one of those two places in the Middle East for a massive site fee, because Abu Dhabi pays the UFC to come there. That's why they get these mega events, because they're like, look, Dana, we'll give you millions of dollars, but don't give us a shit event. And right now, the way the UFC has a deal structured with ESPN pays the UFC a flat fee, okay? So whatever the amount is, we don't actually know the amount. There's been rumors it's 500K buys. So essentially, ESPN pays the UFC 500K pay-per-view buys, regardless of what the event does, okay? Now, if that's the case and they believe in Khamzat Chimaev's star power, why would they want to give ESPN, who they're leaving in January for Paramount, why would they want to give them their biggest star in Khamzat Chimaev? So I believe there's probably some of that going on behind the scenes. Let's not give Khamzat Chimaev to ESPN again. We gave him the Dricus fight. It was a mega fight. It sold a lot of pay-per-view buys. Let's save him for the Paramount deal. And meanwhile, we'll negotiate a massive deal in the Middle East. We'll get a huge site fee. We'll take Khamzat Chimaev over there. We'll have him fight whoever got the most impressive middleweight performance out of Nassourdine Imavov versus Caio Borralho or Renier de Ridder versus Fluffy Hernandez. That'll be the number one contender. It'll be on Paramount, our new partner who paid us an absorbent amount of money, more money than they could ever imagine. Let's start delivering for them, because Khamzat is one of the biggest stars in the sport. So let's give them a big event. It may not be the very first event, but early, January, February, Khamzat Chimaev will most likely defend his belt. It will be on Paramount. It will do mega numbers, and the deal will start off with a bang. And I think the UFC is like, you know what, ESPN's kind of shit. They can't even get their site in order where people can even buy the pay-per-view. They're constantly lagging. They don't even have the fights anymore. By the way, I could make my own video about this, but I went to rewatch Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus Du Plessis earlier today on my phone. I pulled it up on my phone. They gave me an unskippable ad. I'm a paying ESPN Plus subscriber. Now they're giving me unskippable ads for a pay-per-view I already paid for. What a joke that is. ESPN deserves to go out of business. I can't wait to cancel my ESPN Plus subscription. But anyway, to sum this up, the UFC does not want to gift ESPN Plus a Khamzat Chimaev pay-per-view or second Khamzat Chimaev pay-per-view. They'd rather have Khamzat Chimaev fight on Paramount, and they'd rather negotiate a mega deal in the Middle East for Khamzat Chimaev to fight over there to defend his title. It makes more business sense, but this is one of those fine details that will be forgotten in a year, where everyone's like, man, Khamzat only fights, man, he didn't take no damage against DDP, and he didn't come back for 6 months. And by the way, isn't it funny? I don't want to sit here and argue with a ghost, but people watch Khamzat Chimaev against DDP and they're like, he's so boring. He's so boring. And they were just complaining that he never fights. So which is it? I'm trying my best to reconcile that. So he's boring, but he never fights. Well, why do you care if he fights if he's boring? You don't want to watch him fight anyway, right? So which is it? So I know there's going to be some people saying, yeah, Khamzat, look, he promised October, which he didn't promise October. He said he would fight in October. The UFC didn't call him on it. Didn't say, let's do it. Let's do it. You know what? Let's have you a quick turnaround. They didn't do it. And now he's got to sit out for a while again. And again, I can see next year people being like, yeah, he's inactive. He sat out for 6 months. He didn't defend his title. He only fought once last year. But they won't take into account the actual circumstances behind why he fought when he did. Because it was UFC decision-making. Because the UFC has fumbled Khamzat's career time and time again. I'm hoping they're getting it on track. But I think it's very funny that now I think people will criticize him for inactivity, but they were just saying he was boring and they don't want to watch him fight. They didn't enjoy his fight. So why do you care if he ever fights again? I get it. Okay. It's people being massive hypocrites and saying really dumb takes regarding Khamzat Chimaev. But to sum it all up, they're saving Khamzat Chimaev for the Paramount deal. I still love the RDR versus Fluffy Hernandez fight. I still love the Nassourdine Imavov versus Caio Borralho fight. I think if Imavov wins, he's the undeniable number 1 contender. But the UFC is now pitting these guys against each other. Whoever has the best performance will be the next contender for Khamzat Chimaev. Either way, I can't wait. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.